Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast where professional jesters, dramaturgical deviants and mirthful misanthropes dissect the ontological significance of comedy in their existentially unstable lives, all in pursuit of answering one profound question. How would they summarise comedy in a nutshell? I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 1,800 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is an award-winning stand-up comedian and a member of the Weirdos collective, known for blending surrealist theatrics with intelligent and silly stand-up. Their 2025 show, Baby Doomer, received a nomination for Best Show at this year's Leicester Comedy Festival. It's comedian Sam Nicoresti. Do you think there's a point at which sort of early on comedy was impactful on you? Do you have a memory of comedy being influential growing up, for example?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always been a silly little bugger. I mean, I'd struggle now to really remember. I think, well, do you know what? I've talked about this before, but the first bit of comedy that really got me was Basil Fawlty beating up his car.
Oh yeah.
If you remember that episode of Fawlty Town, when he's been back and forth getting the duck, and he picks up that trifle and his car breaks down. I've been told I used to rewind that. I would sit in the front room about 4 inches away from the television, and I would just rewind and play that scene over and over again. There's something about it just really, really tickled me, and I don't think anyone has ever bettered it since. Yeah, which is a shame, really. You'd feel like, as a sort of trans comedian and all this, that John Cleese wouldn't sort of retain the sort of god status of uber comedian in my mind, but the physicality and the frustration and all of that in that one scene is just, I don't know, it just had me in hysterics, and I've always been drawn to those moments of breakdown, anything that just goes beyond the pale. Obsessed with.
Yeah,
I think it sort of because it preceded the TikTok culture of nowadays. You feel like nowadays, that's the kind of thing you'd watch. In fact, I remember seeing, if you remember that the BBC producer having a breakdown on the M1 trying to perform a citizen's arrest on a carload of people. Put your hands up against the car and prepare to die. I think that's very faulty coded.
Yeah. Do you think that was like an influence on you personally, or there were other influences around the time that sort of drove you towards comedy for yourself?
I don't know, really. I mean, I think the thing with comedy is, it's hard to justify, isn't it? Like, it's maybe going back and trying to say, oh, this signposted me or pushed me in this direction. You can do that with hindsight, but
yeah.
It's kind of an instinctual reaction, and I don't know, why certain things speak to certain people, but when something gets you, it just gets you. And I'm not the greatest, I don't have the greatest amount of insight upon my own act, but I always love in other people that sort of that frustration and resignation mixed with a kind of an anger against an impassionate, impersonal machine.
Yeah.
I think whether people are rallying against a broken down car or a system or a train of thought they can't get out of, or a situation, I love impotent rage. So yeah, maybe that has influenced my style. I don't know.
Yeah. So when do you think that you decided to take up comedy for yourself then, to be a performer in that sense?
I don't know, because I was quite a serious kid. I love comedy, but I always wanted to be a writer. I kind of think with comedians, we're all failed something else. There was always something we wanted to do that we couldn't. Unless I think of very few people that just have always wanted to be a comedian, and those people are kind of unparalleled geniuses in their field. But majority of us, we're failed beat poets or authors or like biologists or town planners, whatever it is. There's always some dream that we feel we weren't able to reach, and then comedy is kind of the the catcher in the sink, I don't know. I think I started doing sketch comedy when I was like 14. I used to go to a weekend drama club, like a youth theatre
Hmm.
in Birmingham. It's called Stage Two, and
Yeah.
they met in this place. I don't know if you know Birmingham, the Paradise Circus, which is just one of the most aspirationally named places. It was a huge brutalist structure. They knocked it down, and quite right in the end. They built a £1 million library that's the sort of pride of the city now. But it was like this horrible brutalist, like Escher-esque building that I remember whenever you had to go, you had to be. They told you to be careful where you walked because of the needles that were like festooned around, and it was run by Liz Light, whose brother is, I think his name was Sam Light. He's an actor anyway,
Right.
John Light, I think maybe.
Mm.
And he was like a big deal, and she was a really good director, but it was very draconian. It was correct for kids. The sort of things that she would attempt to stage were insane. We did and it was always funny stuff because there was like 200 kids,
Mm.
and it was always about how you shoehorn them all in to the play. So it was a lot of like extraneous chorus lines and stuff. We did an adaptation of Stephen Burkoff's one man requiem for Ground Zero, that had about 200 Brummies in, all doing New York accents. I played a paper boy. I genuinely, this can't have been the line, but genuinely, I remember saying something like, extra, extra, read all about it, 9/11. But I think they did a comedy night, and me and my friend Alistair, we put together a little sketch show for it, and
Mm.
we were playing two French chefs, and it was in this sort of I can't remember the theatre now, but it was in it was like the Rep or something,
Mm.
and I remember it was they had those big red sort of proscenium curtains, and we were doing this sketch about French chefs, and there was a lot of cream pies involved, and I think it was going really well, and then I got carried away and I got cream all up the expensive red curtains, and the entire room went silent. I think just thinking about the deposit they'd just lost. So I think the first time I did comedy was also the first time I ever bombed, but came with the hunger.
So sketches, and you had a partnership with Tom Burgess for a while. It was doing sort of character comedy, but then you made a switch into stand up. So you've been your journey sketch and then character and then stand up, or do you flip between them easily, do you think?
I don't know. I started at a time that was kind of like a golden age of sketch.
Mm.
We were all living in this delusion that sketch still worked. That there was still something to be eked out of it, and I think
Mm.
now that's a lot more. That's gone the way of clowning,
Mm.
and everybody else that would have done sketch does TikToks. And I mean, there are still like really good sketch groups going, but I
Mm.
think they know it's useless. But I was like, I mean, I guess it's a normal way to start, isn't it? Like university. And I think, when you're like a 21-year-old university student, you don't have anything interesting to talk about. So it's quite hard to do stand up. Like I tried it a bunch at uni, and it was awful, truly dreadful. Again, because I was still trying to be a poet. I mean, it was all just bad. But like, sketch is a nice way of you don't have to have a personality to do sketch. You just need to have a distinct voice.
Mm.
So I did that. Yeah, I did that with, well, there was four of us at first, and then
Mm.
there were three, and then there was two.
Right.
The kind of natural progression of a sketch group.
Mm.
But it was like it was like Massive Dad and Auntie Donna and Gaines, and like all of that lot were kind of starting out at the time, and I remember that time quite fondly,
Mm.
and I've got a lot of useless memories of now gone sketch groups. See, some of the members still go. Delete the Banjacks, if you remember them. That was one of the first sketch groups I saw at the Pleasance, and Dan Cook's excellent stand up. And I don't know what the others are doing, but I am sure they are also, finding success in their fields. But sketch was like, I don't know. It was a nice way to learn how to like write 3 minutes and concepts that had a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened, and it just became impossible to meet up with another person. And
Yeah.
that's really why I started doing stand up, out of pure desperation.
So that period then during the pandemic when everything was locked down, I mean, what was that time period that you spent? You talk about doing stand up. So did you do Zoom gigs? Did you do writing in that period?
I did not. Well, I wrote a whole radio show
Mm.
in that period that no one wanted. I'd started doing solo. I find it really difficult to talk about because it's like, as a stand-up, I've been going since 21. I would say officially. When I did the New Comedian of the Year competition,
Yeah.
that was honestly like my one of my first gigs.
Hmm.
But I had done solo shows. Like I'd had a show, like a solo show at that had gone to Soho and had done the Fringe, and that was UFO.
Yeah.
But that wasn't. I don't think that was a stand-up show, because I remember like coming away from that and looking at it and going, "Oh, that's interesting. That's actually like 5 minutes from this that kind of works for stand-up."
Mm.
And that was like my attitude towards it for ages. I loved making theatrical, like weird alternative shows about themes, or a concept hour, but like I was that kind of a comedian. And I was a big part of Weirdos.
Yeah.
So I used to do a lot of the Weirdos gigs and like one-off things and art projects and all kinds of stuff, but I'd never thought of myself as a stand-up until I did that competition.
Mm. Well, I know you through Weirdos. I actually, well, the first time I saw you, you were a participant, let's say, in Boogie Nights 2018, I
Yes,
think
a
it was. Yeah.
participant. I was a paid cast member, thank you very much.
Well, it appeared under Adam Larter's name. Obviously,
The arrogance of this man.
the center of the Weirdos collective,
Oh, he'd like to
the
think.
cardboard king. Uh, and this is something we talked about with previous guest, Charlie Vera Martin. We talked about the Weirdos. How did you come to be involved in that? And then how are you still involved in that? Obviously, I saw you recently in the Christmas panto, obviously at Bloomsbury.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
Boonish, the
that
alien.
was it, Boognish. I couldn't remember.
That was a bit of a deep cut, because not many people even recognised me because of the amount of prosthetics that I'd hastily slapped on. I genuinely bought that costume an hour before. I just went around every single Halloween shop in Soho, cleaned them out. Yeah, that was a fun one. Oh, I love doing those shows. I think I got, God, Weirdos. Well, do you know what it was? I started in Sheffield. We kind of had our own little scene, and it was like me and Tom and Sean Morley was kind of the linchpin of it. And there was like a bunch of other people around that time. Glenn Moore was like, he used to be in Thunderbirds, two-person sketch group that started at Sheffield, and he was like a year or two above. And God, I don't know, Rahul Kohli, and Daman as well, and all sorts of people that are still going. It was a bit of a blip, really. And we used to put on a lot of like weird gigs at this place called the Riverside, that was a sort of collapsing pub. The owner was undergoing some sort of emotional difficulty, if I remember rightly. And he let us have the room once and then completely forgot about it, and we just used to come back like every month and put on a whole new play. And it was like through that, so we were kind of doing our own thing. And then in that kind of classic way, when you're not in London, you're looking at what's going on in London, and you're jealous of it. You think, these weirdos, they're getting called a new comic strip, and they're clearly going to be on telly in the next year. It's not fair. And I think we ended up making track. Well, there was that famous article that Josh Norris wrote in Chortle about how there's no comedy north of the Watford Gap. And then I think Sean reached out to him, and they sort of met up for some kind of summit, and we got to know them through that. And then got involved in, I think the first Weirdo show I did was Only Fools and Horses and Horses and Horses and Horses. I I think I was either there or either I was in it or I was watching it. I can't quite. This is the kind of thing with Weirdos. You never quite remember if you were in it or just watching it. There's so many people involved. But yeah, I got involved in that, and then lo and behold, all these years later, I've still not been on the telly, but I had a lot more friends.
One of the things I love when I watch comedy is, and I said this to Charlie, is how much fun the people performing are having. And she rightly pointed out too much fun, if anything, in Weirdos. I don't know. To me, it seems doing something like the Weirdos is refreshing when you do comedy for a job. Do you still have the joy in it? Do you still have fun doing comedy, or is it labor for you?
Well, let's be clear. I do not do this for a job. I mean, I'm a semi-professional. It's I don't know how you make money off this. I mean, I am notoriously bad with cash. It's a genealogical issue. I've come from a long line of people that are very bad with money, but I don't. I mean, I get it. Like the more I do stand up, the more I feel like there's a lot of pressure with it, and you're putting yourself out there all the time, and especially as like Edinburgh is the main way to kind of get seen still outside of social media, which has its own pitfalls and problems. You can feel the pressure,
yeah,
and like yeah. I mean, when I first started, I thought that you weren't allowed to do the same 10 minutes twice, like in case someone had seen it before in the audience. So I was writing like a fresh 5 minutes of material every time I gigged, and it was very stressful. But like now, yeah, I've got it. Like you turn up and you do the same set, and I mean, I still enjoy it. I don't because I don't do it professionally. I tend to do. I won't take a gig if I don't wanna. Although I guess that is kind of changing a bit. I guess I don't know. Yeah, there has been a bit of a sea change of late, but yeah, like Weirdos and those things. It's great just to be able to go and see people that you've been gigging with and growing up with for years, and just put on a stupid wig that is absolutely infested with lice. Because this is the thing with that, all of those props and costumes, they all come out of the same big suitcase that's just been in Adam's house for, I'd say, going on 15 years now. and I know he has never washed any of that stuff. Like that's the risk you take when you play with old Larsa. But of course it's fun. It's fun. It's fun to sort of half learn your lines and turn out and get to do this big panto characters, and
yeah,
it's silly. And being silly is all part of the joy of it, isn't it?
Yeah. When you're on stage and performing, and in that sense, like dressing up and playing larger than life characters, how much of you is you when you're performing as yourself? Like if you're doing your Edinburgh show and it's you doing stand up, is that a character of you that you're playing, or is that just as honest as a comedian can ever be?
I've recently fallen in love with the word persona. I use persona all the time. It really makes sense because it's not a character, but it's also not you. Right, and it is important to because the stories, some of them are tall tales, some of them are shaggy dog stories, and they're all like based in truth. I mean, like I think different comedians would see it differently. For me, especially with a sketch background, I quite like taking something that's rooted in something that's happened, and then trying to build on that and take it to a point of absurdity that helps kind of get into maybe like a sort of a deeper truth, or a sort of a thematic thing. Or so I don't like saying it's me because it's not. Well, especially as like I think my persona seems to be developing very much into basically having an autistic meltdown on stage. I'm usually quite stressed about something, or quite like het up, and I don't know if it's also. I think it's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde situation, or maybe like a Dorian Gray might be a better analogy. I think the more you put something into that image, the more it takes away from your own life. Like I don't feel the same needs as that person on stage to express certain things because I have that outlet, and that's what art is, and that's what art can do. It's a tension release for things that you feel unable to express in your daily life.
Right.
So I think a persona is a really useful way of talking about that doesn't make you sound all highfalutin. But yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
In answer to your question, but I've forgotten what it was. But yes, the answer is yes.
Well, you mentioned Leicester Square New Comedian 2021, which you won. You didn't point that bit out.
It would have been arrogant for me to go from saying it was my first gig to I won it, but yeah, I did.
That that is for others to say.
Yeah.
So I've said it. So there you go. So I mean, how do you feel about competitions and awards? Do you have a competitive streak in you?
No, I think if I'd had a competitive streak, I would have entered more than one competition, which is what I really did a real tortoise and a hare situation of like I won. I mean, it was a really good year when I mean, Dan Tiernan, Anya Magliano,
Mm.
to name two of the people. I remember being in that final that I was like, yeah, no, there's no way, it's over. Um, and those. I mean, those guys have kind of done a lot better, but especially Dan because he entered every other competition and won it that year. So it sort of blows it out the toilet, really. But I think that I don't know. I think it's annoying because it's obviously stupid and pointless to try and compare people in that way. Like comedy's not objective, and you can't just put people next to each other and go, oh, you're the best.
Mm.
It's lineup placement and it's how you catch certain judges' preferences and eyes and how it all goes on the night and all of this kind of stuff. But
Mm.
there is an undeniable thing of like the problem is in this industry, you need something to kind of grab attention. And like I'd been going, doing sketch and everything for years before that
Mm.
and never really getting anywhere with it. And then I think having that accolade did open doors. Like it just fundamentally, like I got an agent from it, and
Mm.
people started offering me, better gigs, and I'd say that other people care about it.
You mentioned a couple of your peers there, Dantine and Anna Maggiano. Do you watch other comedians? Is that something you can do for entertainment, or do you watch it differently now?
I've been trying to come back round to it. I couldn't for years. I
Mm.
was so hateful. No, it's not. It's hard, isn't it, when you like because especially when you're like when you gig and part of the gig is watching the comedy and that does start to feel like work and you do start to feel like why would I do this on my day off?
Mm.
There's laundry to be done. But I don't know. I was having a bit of a freak out about it like a year or two ago and just realizing like I definitely used to love this
Mm.
and I definitely still do love this. And I feel like incapable of watching other people. And I think some of that is just centering yourself, like finding your own peace and realizing that like it's not a competition and it's not a comparison and you are allowed to like I mean I find all my friends very funny.
Mm.
um, but I have been making more of an effort to watch people's work
Yeah.
and definitely like growing as a comedian and as a person from it because like I love it.
Yeah.
I love having a giggle.
What about Edinburgh then? So the festival, we've touched on it a very little bit, but what's your festival experience been like? And you're going back this year with another new show, a show that's received a nomination for Best Show at Leicester in February this year. So how has that experience changed, and what are you looking forward to this year that maybe is different?
I don't know. There's different levels, isn't there, to the Fringe?
Mm.
Like I'm on a new. It's interesting doing this show. So I'm doing Baby Doomer this year,
Mm.
and this is operating on the level that I've not had access to before, where there's hype to in an industry way. It's all manufactured, but there is hype, and I think that's because the last like I mean well the last show went well, and I managed to film it, and I think the film's done really well, and just like getting people to actually see it.
Mm.
And that's an interesting part of Edinburgh of after spending quite a few years trying to break through with doing because I did UFO in 2019
Mm.
and Bedtime before that 2017, and both of those were like quite weird shows. They weren't really going for like major breakthrough success. It was definitely me experimenting and play in, and I'm really proud of them. I did well, but like I think this is a different type of show, and there's a different type of like pressure behind it. Like I found when I did Woke Flake, because I paid for PR that year, it was getting in a couple of like lists and those kinds of things, and people thought it was my debut. Everyone was like, "Oh, it's your debut year." No, this is my third show. This will be my fourth. And I found that really annoying at the time, of this assumption that you're not really doing Edinburgh properly until you're getting 8 grand into debt over it and stressing about it, and that kind of that feels very wrong to me. And I do think that the Fringe has changed in that regard since I started doing it, and some of that is just like where I like my own placement, my own perspective within it. Right. But I think as well, like most people accept, with the the rising costs of it, it's so hard to do that nobody is bringing up experimental work anymore, or far fewer people are willing to take that risk, because why would you turn up with something that you don't know is going to work if it's going to cost you thousands of pounds to do so? You want to know that you're at least like going for these industry awards, for these gains, for this and that. And it's like, it's kind of, obviously it spoils the fun, and I think that it's made it a worse festival as a result, even if the quality of the individual shows has gone up, because you feel less like you could just stumble into or stumble across something. And I don't know, like maybe there's people that are like just at a different perspective from me, would be like, no, that's nonsense, but like I feel that all of the weird stuff now is clowning, and that all comes from the same school of literally the same school. And if not, then it's sketch groups, and that's all kind of predictable. And then it's it's stand-ups, and with the stand-up, you kind of tend to fall into a little bit of a pattern with it. And obviously, like, I mean, there are some people doing really cool stuff up there, but I don't know, the last time I went up and felt like it's midnight, I'm in a venue that should not be legally allowed to operate. I'm watching a man create like loop comedy out of a Toy Story rigged like alien doll. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, whilst dressed as a jester. That kind of that sense of experimentation has maybe, I don't want to say been lost, because who am I to pontificate like that? Well, I think it's all changed now since I was young, but I don't know. But also, prove me wrong.
For sure. So 2 shows of yours mentioned there. Woke Flake, which is available on YouTube.
Oh yeah, YouTube.com. We worked hard to get that deal set up, but we signed the contracts, and YouTube allowed me to create an account and upload it for free.
So why don't you tell potential viewers what that show contains, and then tell me about what the upcoming show Baby Doomer is all about?
God, I mean, where do you begin?
Please describe it, because I cannot.
Right, yeah, I won't put it on you. Woke Flake started. It's a show about transition, and about the sort of the borders of identity, and trying to make contact with yourself. I always see it as, I did UFO was a show about alienation, and feeling disconnected from each other and from yourself, and Woke Flake was where I personally found out what my connection point was, and for me it was it was transness, and it was queerness, and embracing those like sides of myself, but it's not a coming out show, and it's not a celebration of identity or diversity or anything. It was a very, very hard show that was about question, and doubt, and deep doubt, and self-hatred, and trying to kill the policeman in your head, or the podcaster, the right-wing live streamer in your head. And so it's like the finished special is kind of the perfect distillation of everything I wanted to do with it. But as a live show, it was a little different, but still more or less the same. And it's kind of half and half. So it's like half stand up about gender identity, and the process of like questioning all these things about what is queerness, what is identity, where and then it's also half a kind of character show where I play a right-wing podcaster live streaming from the soul, who eventually ends up. Well, I won't spoil it, but it gets a bit wild towards the end, and I don't even know like who's seen it, because I think the clips that I've been posting the clips on socials, and they've done well. And I mean, like the special, I think has like it's done remarkably well from what I was expecting. I thought it would top out at about 50 views, like most of the things. But I'm kind of always a little bit suspicious of when people are like, "I loved your special," if they mean, did you watch like the entire 1 hour like art project thing, or did you just see a clip on TikTok? They're very different.
And so what about the upcoming show, Baby Doomer?
Yeah, it's in preview, so I couldn't tell you in a nutshell what it is. But yeah, got to say the title of the thing at some point in the thing. But I think well, you know, it's been about it started off as a show about mental collapse. I went a little crazy last year. I kind of dissociated for 6 months. And the sort of starting point was about that, because it seemed a very classic area of interest for me. I've always been interested in that, the duality and division and tension and all of that sort of stuff. And then it's become a lot more about trying to change in a system that won't let you change, and people that hold you back and people that push you forwards. And then outside of that, it's about trying to find the perfect skirt suit. And those things are slowly coming together across preview season to create a cohesive piece. But so far I've got a very good story about TK Maxx that I'm quite proud of. That's really working now. And then I'm also trying to tell a story about doing an open mic night in a care home, and joining a cult, and also getting on hormones and having to like preserve your gametes, as we call it in the biz. And how that kind of brings up questions of children and legacy and all of that, amongst the backdrop of nihilism and doomerism that we live in. How much of that will make the final cut, we don't know, but that's where it's at.
Yeah. As you say, you're in preview now. So as you're working through, you're doing your works in progress gigs, do you keep things in because they amuse you, even if they might not work in the room? Do you have secret jokes or special things that you must keep?
Yes, but that's why you get a director. Yeah, there are definitely some routines that I have been really, really doing against the wind. Yes. I mean, I think that like you've got to do what you think's fun, right? Like otherwise, who are you trying to please? I think the most annoying thing would be, because like if you go to every gig and you're like, oh, they didn't like that, I better lose that, and I better put stuff in, and like you're trying to play to an imagined audience, all that's going to happen is you're going to end up doing this show, and critics are going to see it, and they're just going to say like, it just doesn't feel like it's them, or it feels like a bit uncentered or like unfocused. I think just do like, I'd rather I say this now, but like, I'd rather have a show that was like a critical flop, that I was like, I mean, I loved it. I thought that was so funny, rather than do something that's like absolutely joyless.
Yeah,
that people are like, oh, it's technically this and structurally, and like, who gives a crap? Like, people see through it. People see through it. They know.
Yeah.
I'd rather. Yeah, I think you got to make yourself laugh, but also you do have to have the discipline of not constantly adding and changing things just to keep yourself amused.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Make yourself laugh, but don't make yourself amused.
So where do you think you find yourself most at home? Is it in writing the jokes? Is it in performing an hour or doing spots or hosting? Where's your comfort zone in that sense?
I have no comfort zone. I find it all incredibly difficult and stressful. I'm not like a natural. I'm just not a natural. Like I didn't pick up the mic age 18, and like people were like, "Hey, keep going, kid." I picked it up age 18, and people were like, "No, stop. That's bad." And I'm not like, and when I do new material nights, it's not always, I mean, I guess this is probably like a comedy. I do like comedy for this, but I don't think there's anybody that would, like, at any stage in this industry that would claim, I've never had a bad gig, I've never told a bad joke.
Right.
It's just impossible. Like the record is clear. We've all died, we've all bombed. And I think that's really nice because it shows, I think it exposes what a lot of other art forms try to obfuscate, that you can learn. You learn and you grow.
Mm.
There's no such thing as I mean, well, look, there are geniuses, but but they're very rare, and you don't have to be one. You can sit down and really think and really work at it,
Yeah.
and it will, it can come to you. There are tricks and there are rules and systems and all sorts
Yeah.
that you can do, and I really like that about comedy. It feels very egalitarian, in that, and also in the audience response. So it's very hard. You can go see a play and sit in silence and come away and not really be sure if you liked it or not. But if you do that at a comedy gig, you didn't. If you can make people laugh, you've got them.
Yeah.
You've won,
Yeah.
really. So I mean, I do like doing shows. I think that, um, like gigs and everything, they're really useful. And it's like, and obviously when you get asked to do like a nice one or like a big one, it can feel like, oh wow, like I didn't know I was at this point in my career,
Mm.
or oh, I never thought I'd get to gig with them. Like that's an amazing achievement. But I'm definitely like I'm an Edinburgh Fringe comedian. I'm not trying to like get on the panel shows or whatever. I like long form. I really like doing long form
Mm.
stuff, and I like when people come and see you and you get to set the tone of the room, and that's what I also like going to see. I love seeing comedians who, from the very start, it's not even they it's not necessarily about like possession or domination, which is how some, especially like American comedians tend to see it. You got to get in, you got to own the room, you got to let them know you're in charge.
Mhm.
I think you can be really uncertain of yourself on stage, but if you're creating that atmosphere
Mm.
and you're curating it well enough, people just want to like get into it. It's just really interesting. It's like an album. I'm a concept album comedian.
So, if you're not thinking about panel shows you want to do or things like that, do you have other objectives? Do you set yourself targets for places or people you want to work with?
No, because that would be so arrogant to think that you could just manifest like that. I don't know. I just, you just kind of take each day as it comes. Someone says, "Do you want to do this?" and you say yes, and then you go and you do it. I have no further control than that. I don't set out to achieve. I mean, this is probably to my chagrin. I mean, I'm probably just quite bad at admin. This is probably why, it's taken me so long to get anywhere, because I'm perfectly happy just splashing around in a puddle. But I mean, I've had, it's been I've had like really nice gigs and little career highlights. I think it's mostly when you see someone that maybe you used to watch, or like when you started they were like the thing,
Hmm.
and now it's like you're sharing a bill or they come and see you do a show,
Yeah.
and even if in the moment you're so jaded and hollow, it kind of doesn't register. You're at least intellectually able to say, oh, 16-year-old me would have loved this. What a shame that I, the current adult incarnation of the form, has nothing left to give emotionally to this situation. If only comedy hadn't hollowed me out.
But do you get those moments of re-inspiration, reinvigoration that help to push you forward and onto the next thing?
Um, what my I think my process is always um to get in a foxhole with a show. Like I get obsessed with proving a point, saying something that I don't really understand how to say, and then I will finish it, and then I'll instantly feel like I'm nothing, like I have nothing, I've never done anything, I'm worthless. And then I'll go through this sort of cocoon period of malaise where I just feel like, oh, that was crap. I hated that. And then and then I'll have like a new idea. Something will, happen or occur to me.
Mm.
I'll have a dream usually, or like, I'll be having a bath and I'll have an idea for a show title and I'll write it down, and then, you know, 9 months later, I'm answering 50 emails a day about it. I hate it again. So it's a self-driven machine. Um,
Mm.
but it's like, I think I try and find something different each time. So, with Woke Flake, it was about the question of gender, and that was an interesting project for me because for me the transition itself was tied up in the show, and
Mm.
everything that I was thinking and going through was trying to question my own identity, and struggling with that and feeling like, oh god, you know what, this isn't easy, and actually there is no just waking up one day and being like, oh, I'm a this, I'm a that,
Mm.
oh, I figured it, I've cracked it. I was putting that into the show, and that was the project. And then with Baby Doomer, the project was the concept is, can I do a stand-up hour? Because everything I'd done before, like, always has some kind of weird element. There's always a puppet or a drone track or like a sort of an alien abduction or something. So I was just like, I want to do a show that has no overarching theme. And then that became the theme, and I became obsessed with the concept of a stand-up hour. So kind of where I'm at right now. But I can never think beyond what's like immediately in front of me. I'm very protozoic in that sense. I'm in what I'm doing, and then when it's finished, I'm like, well, I've got nothing.
So, do you think that there's one important lesson that you've learned that you do take a through line, something that, are words to live by, if you like?
Um, I don't think there's no golden phrase, or like rule that just I always go by. But
Yeah.
I think you pick up little things. I like and methods of working that really help. I try and I for me, I always try and remember that no one cares. Like, that's always been really helpful to me. Like when you're, wanking on about this or that, or like trying to use your comedy to make some grander point, you got to be like, no one cares. And honestly, probably you're stupid. Like, you're probably much thicker than the people coming to watch your show. So stop trying to make some point and just let them enjoy it. And I guess, like, from that, I try and stream quite a lot, and I've been really working on like techniques that allow me to, because I used to, like, when I was first writing stand up, it would be heavy paragraphs
Right.
of text because I was so scared about getting on stage and not having anything to say.
Mm.
um and then, through being like involved in Weirdos and the Glang Show and things like this that are all about creating chaos
Mm.
in the room, and how that, chaos can be a technique
Yeah.
as well for like exploration, discovery, and all of this. Losing that fear and just knowing, like, I'm going to be fine. I could forget everything I was going to do and I'd still be able to chat
Yeah.
to them has really helped. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any advice. No, I'm sorry. I've got nothing. I've got nothing for people. If you want my advice, give up. Don't do it. It's too expensive. It goes nowhere. The industry is collapsing. Television is, not the golden ticket it once was. Social media is a trap that will turn you into a content machine. Just go find a beautiful person you love, and marry them, and learn how to make things with your hands. Be happy.
Just write that down. Be
Be happy.
happy. Okay. Duly noted.
Write it big.
It's in block capitals.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
So given that, then leads us nicely onto, what do you think have so far been your worst and best experiences being in comedy?
Wow. Gosh. I mean, this is the thing. I'm just going to name like the most recent thing I've done, probably. That's as far back as my memory goes. But I did the Mac Showcase, a Mac Comedy Fest, and
Yeah.
I emceed their Saturday night showcase, which is to about 200 people, which probably doesn't sound like a lot to some people, and then to other people sounds like way too much. But it was like like I've done bigger gigs, not loads, but I have. But like I think that one particularly was really nice because that's a thing I've been going to since 2018, and it's one of the with Little Wonder, the people that run it, like it's one of those really nice examples of relationship building in comedy and people just having trust in you, and how I think like producers really should, when it's working, how they really operate,
Yeah.
of like, they got like, I was on, doing a show to like 10 people in my first year, and figuring it out, and I've just, but they've kept booking me and I've kept going back, and as I've kind of grown and like expanded what I'm doing, they've given me more opportunities, and then so I think getting to go back this year and like do the big showcase that
Yeah.
I remember going to my first year and watching like Acaster do it and things like that, and being like, bloody hell, that's the pinnacle, isn't it? I think that was like a nice thing, and I like doing like festivals as well. That like I've done a couple, did like Green Man last year, and I think festivals are really fun, especially because you just get to go, get to go. Yeah, that's kind of really. I like freebies. I like perks. I like getting to travel. Those are always the best gigs. Like when you're in a city you've not been in before or whatnot.
Mm.
And everyone's treating you really nice because they think you're special for some reason. That's lovely. Um, and worst gigs. I mean, I've had a few, but the archetypal one that always comes to mind is we did back when we were a three-person sketch group,
Mhm.
me and Tom and a guy called Mike, who's out the game. He's out the game now, and happy for it. He's just got married, so this is what I'm saying. Quit. Everyone I used to do comedy with has either quit and got happy, or they've got a job on the production side of the industry and are making loads of money. But that was we did it was Spiky Mike was booking a English Comedian of the Year heats,
Mm.
and it was in Derby, and we went, and it was in this pub that was absolutely festooned in England flags. I'm pretty sure it was called the George, and it was a horrible affair, and the gig was upstairs in this really narrow but very long room, and the stage was right in the far corner,
Mm.
and it was only big enough to hold one person, and there were three of us, and we sort of, and also it was sketch comedy from three 22-year-olds, like no one wanted to see it. And we got on stage, and the whole front row was just bald white men, and there was a television behind us, and instantly we started getting heckled asking to put the rugby on. And it turned out it was like England v Wales or something, and everybody there thought that it was they were going to be playing the rugby. They didn't know his comedy night was on, and it absolutely died. It was so bad, and then afterwards we missed our train. It was like the last train home, and we missed it
Mm.
because we'd stayed to see the results because we thought we might still win. And Derby is a horrible. I mean, like the train station, if you've ever been, just opens out onto an industrial estate. It's like most train stations, you put them in, you build infrastructure. You have a Costa or something,
Yeah.
or a Pret or something. But it was just like straight out into corrugated iron and like barbed wire fences. And we didn't know what to do, so we just spent the night in the in the offing, and just in the in the waiting room, trying to get a bit of kip on these really uncomfortable benches. And I remember thinking then, like, this sucks. Like, this is not, I want to quit. This is such a bad idea for a career. But, kept going, and hasn't really improved. Still sucks.
So, how can we find out about you and where we can come and see you performing?
Well, do you know, I would love to say my website, but I haven't updated it in a couple of months. I'm getting someone's coding me a new one, and it's going to look really nice. So depending on when this episode goes out, if it's late June, July onwards, go to my lovely new website, samnicoresti.com. But if you want to play it safe, I'm on Instagram, which I'm trying to get off because I hate the idea that you have to have a Meta account to access the comedy. But I do post on there, and you can get onto my link tree, which is my newsletter, which is where I do all my real business. You got to get them on the newsletter, and it's a good one. I don't post all that often, and it's just what I've been up to. Sometimes a little article, sometimes a funny story, and my dates. So yeah, website, Instagram, or newsletter, which you can get through my website or my Instagram. If you want to come see Baby Doomer, it's going to be debuting at the Edinburgh Fringe at the Pleasance Courtyard. There every day except the 11th at 20 to 6 or 17:40 or 5:40, depending on how you want to read your time. There you go. That was concise, wasn't it?
So then I'll ask you my final question, of course. How would you sum up comedy in a nutshell?
Yeah, I had the whole interview to think about this, and I don't know. I can't decide if I want to say something dumb or something that's trying so hard to be meaningful it's embarrassing. I think that I think comedy is the point where you're trying to explain something at the borders of perception that you can't quite put your finger on, and then you give up. You give up and you go, fuck it. There you go. That was almost. I think if that had been more concise, that might have felt.
It was almost philosophical.
Almost philosophical. Well, there you go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I nearly had it, and then I dropped it.
It just remains for me to say thank you so much for being my guest. It's been absolutely delightful talking with you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been nice. It's been fun.